The wedding invitation arrived like a ghost from a life I no longer belonged to. White card, gold lettering, my brother's name gleaming at the top like a headline announcing my own irrelevance. Mr. Daniel Whitmore and Miss Caroline Hayes request the honor of your presence. Honor. The word made me laugh bitterly. There had been no honor between us for years. I stared at the card for a long time, tracing the embossed edges. Part of me wanted to throw it into the trash, but another, smaller part, the one that still remembered late night laughter and shared secrets with my brother before everything soared, whispered that maybe, just maybe, I should go. Closure, I told myself. Not forgiveness. Just an ending. So I went. The church stood like a palace, every stone polished to perfection. Cars lined the street, the kind that gleamed under sunlight and cost more than everything I owned. My simple blue dress suddenly felt like a sin. I brushed invisible dust off it, straightened my shoulders, and stepped inside. No one expected me to actually show up. I could tell by the way heads turned, conversations faltered, and eyes widened. My mother was the first to recover. She smiled, that smile that never reached her eyes. "Elena," she said, her tone dripping with mock sweetness. "You made it. We didn't think you'd actually come." But her words sliced through me. But I kept my face calm. "You invited me," I said quietly. "Yes, well," she replied, voice carrying just loud enough for the nearby guests to hear. "It's good to see you've finally learned to be punctual. Though, you might have mentioned you'd be attending. We had to find you a seat last minute." And she gestured toward the far end of the hall. I followed her gaze and felt my stomach drop. A small, lonely table sat near the exit, outside the reception hall, right next to the restrooms. My name card lay there like a cruel joke. People laughed softly behind their napkins as I walked to it. I could hear whispers. "That's Daniel's sister. Didn't she get into trouble? Something about stealing from the family business, wasn't it?" The lies still lingered after all these years. I sat down, pretending I didn't care, pretending that the smell of cleaning chemicals from the restroom didn't sting my nose, pretending that I couldn't see my family laughing inside without me. My mother's voice carried through the open doors, high and sharp like a blade. "You know," she said to a cluster of relatives, "we weren't sure if Elena would even find something appropriate to wear." Laughter followed, brittle, ugly. I focused on the tiny centerpiece in front of me, a wilted rose in a cracked glass vase. It was almost poetic. I wanted to leave. Every cell in my body screamed at me to walk out, to never look back. But pride held me in my seat. They had taken enough from me already. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of watching me run. A waiter approached, hesitant, balancing a tray of champagne. "Miss Whitmore," he asked. "Would you like?" I smiled faintly. "I'm fine, thank you." He looked at me with quiet sympathy before walking away. I could feel the heat rising behind my eyes, but I refused to let a single tear fall. It wasn't just about the seat, or the whispers, or even my mother's smirk. It was about everything that had led me here. The day they turned their backs on me, the lies they spread, the inheritance they stole. I had lost my family, my home, my reputation. I had lost myself. But as I sat there, the faint sound of luxury car tires crunching gravel outside drew everyone's attention. The music faltered, and heads turned toward the grand entrance. I looked up, and that's when I saw him. A tall man stepped out of a sleek black car, the kind that whispered power even when silent. He adjusted his cufflinks, scanned the crowd, and then, to my utter confusion, his gaze found me, and he started walking straight toward me. For a heartbeat, I thought he must have been looking at someone behind me. Men like him. Elegant suit, polished shoes, presence that turned heads. Didn't walk toward women sitting outside near the restroom. But there was no one else. The narrow hallway was empty except for me and the echo of my own disbelief. He stopped in front of my table. Every head inside the hall seemed to swivel our way, the laughter dying mid-breath. My mother's voice cut through the silence, sharp and uncertain. Who is that?" The man's expression softened as his eyes met mine. He looked at me as though he'd found something precious, something long lost. Then he said my name. Not the way my family said it, dripping with disdain, but like it was something beautiful. "Alina Whitmore." My breath caught. "Do I know you?" He smiled, small and genuine. "Not yet, but you will." Before I could respond, he reached out his hand. There was something steady and unshakable in his gaze, something that told me I could trust him, though I didn't know why. The moment his fingers brushed mine, a hush fell over the crowd inside. Even the music had stopped. "I've been looking for you," he said quietly. The words wrapped around me like a riddle. Around us, whispers erupted. I caught fragments. "That's Alexander Vale!" "The billionaire. The one who owns Vale Enterprises. Why is he talking to her?" Alexander Vale. The name flickered in my memory like a news headline. Youngest self, made magnate in the city, brilliant. Untouchable, rarely seen at social events. And yet here he was, at my brother's wedding, standing in front of me, as if I were the only person in the world. My mother rose from her seat, her composure cracking. "Mr. Vale!" she called out, her tone suddenly sugary and false. "What an honor! If you'd told us you were attending, we would have." But he ignored her completely. His hand tightened gently around mine, and without another word, he helped me to my feet. "Elena," he murmured, "you don't belong here." Something in the way he said it, not as an insult, but as a truth, made my throat tighten. For the first time all evening, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel unwanted. I began, but he only shook his head, his eyes kind. "Come with me." And just like that, we walked out together. Past the shocked faces, past my mother's frozen smile, past the whispers that grew louder with every step. I didn't look back, though I could feel the burn of 100 stares on my back. Outside, the sunlight felt too bright after the dim hall. The cold air filled my lungs like a breath I hadn't taken in years. Alexander opened the car door for me, and I hesitated. Everything about this moment felt unreal, like stepping into someone else's story. "Why?" I asked finally, my voice barely a whisper. "Why are you doing this?" He studied me for a moment, his gaze thoughtful, almost pained. "Because you helped me once," he said. "And you didn't even know it." Before I could ask what he meant, he signaled to his driver. The car door closed behind us, muffling the distant murmur of chaos that was already beginning to stir inside the hall. Through the tinted window, I saw my mother rush outside, her face pale and furious. My brother followed, confusion written all over him. They didn't dare call out to me, not with cameras flashing now that a celebrity was involved. Inside the car, silence stretched between us. I wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but the calm certainty in Alexander's posture told me that answers would come soon enough. "Your family," he said finally, his voice quiet but edged with steel, "has made many mistakes. You've paid for them long enough." My heart thudded painfully in my chest. "You don't know what they did." He turned to me, his eyes dark and unwavering. "I know more than you think." And for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of something I had buried deep under the ruins of betrayal. Hope. As the car rolled away, I caught one last glimpse of the hall. My mother clutching her pearls, my brother's bride looking lost, guests whispering frantically. They didn't know it yet, but something had shifted. The girl they mocked by the restroom wasn't coming back. The car moved swiftly along the winding road outside the city, the sunlight catching Alexander's dark hair and casting shadows over his sharp features. I stared out the window, watching the streets blur past, trying to catch my breath and make sense of everything. Finally, unable to contain myself, I turned to him. "You said I helped you once. What do you mean?" I don't understand." Alexander's jaw tightened slightly, and for a moment, I thought he would remain silent. Then he exhaled, slow and deliberate, as if weighing how much to tell me. "Years ago, a child, my sister, nearly drowned in the river near our home. No one saw it, no one reacted in time. But you were there. You jumped in, saved her, and disappeared before anyone could thank you. I never forgot." My hand went to my chest. The memory came rushing back. A quiet summer afternoon, the terrified screams, the icy water, and me pulling a small, coughing girl to shore. I had never expected recognition. Never expected gratitude. I had been just a girl trying to do the right thing. "You remember me," I whispered. He smiled faintly. "I never forget acts of courage. And I never forget people who are wronged by those who claim to love them but betray them instead." The words stung. They echoed every painful thought I had carried for years. My mother's lies. My father's cold indifference, the way my brother had sided with them. They thought I was weak, irrelevant, a mistake to ignore. Alexander's eyes met mine, intense, unwavering. "I've spent years searching for you," he said. "Because you deserved better. And now it's time they see the truth." I blinked, trying to process what he meant. The truth. He leaned back, his hand brushing against mine in reassurance. "Your family has spent years hiding lies, forging documents, claiming your inheritance, your place in the world, all stolen from you. It ends tonight." My heart raced. Stolen. All the humiliation, the whispers. The courtroom dramas my parents had spun around me. Suddenly it wasn't just emotional. It was tangible theft. And the idea of reclaiming it filled me with a dizzying mixture of relief and fear. Alexander continued, his voice calm but edged with authority. "I've already contacted investigators, lawyers, and financial experts. Every forged signature, every illegal transaction, we have it documented. By the time they realize, it will be irreversible." I stared at him, incredulous. "You're helping me get revenge." He shook his head. "Not revenge. Justice. You won't need to fight them yourself. You only need to show up once, like tonight. I've arranged everything else." I sank into the seat, overwhelmed by the enormity of it all. For so long, I had dreamed of standing up to them, of proving I wasn't the failure they claimed. But now, I realized I didn't need to dream anymore. Someone who had quietly been waiting for the right moment was giving me the chance to reclaim my life. Alexander's gaze softened. "Elena, you never deserved the pain they caused you. Tonight, you step back into the world they tried to erase you from. And this time, they will see you for who you really are." I swallowed hard, a lump in my throat. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel. Power. Not cruel, not vengeful, but rightful. The knowledge that I had been wronged, and that the truth would finally rise, felt intoxicating. As the city skyline approached, I caught glimpses of flashing cameras and startled faces outside the church. My mother's smug confidence, my brother's arrogance, and the guests' whispered laughter. All of it would crumble tonight, and I would watch, silently, from the sidelines if I chose. "You don't have to worry," Alexander said, sensing my thoughts. "I've taken care of everything. You just need to trust me." I nodded, a quiet resolve settling over me like armor. "I trust you." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "Good. Because tonight, they will learn a truth they never anticipated. And you'll finally be free." The car slowed as we approached the church. Through the tinted windows, I could see the panic beginning to ripple inside. A waiter holding papers, whispers growing frantic, my mother clutching her pearls with trembling hands. It was almost time. And for the first time, I felt the sweet, trembling thrill of knowing that justice, long denied, was finally on its way. The church doors opened with a hesitant creak, the sound swallowed almost instantly by the whispers and murmurs of the guests inside. For the first time all evening, the room was filled not with laughter, but tension. A brittle, nervous energy that crawled along the walls like wildfire. Inside, my mother's smile had vanished, replaced by an expression I had never thought I'd see: fear. Her perfectly painted lips trembled, and her eyes darted to the crowd as though seeking an escape. My brother froze mid-step, looking around, utterly bewildered, the arrogance that had once defined him replaced by a gnawing panic. Then came the first scream. A man in a sharp suit strode into the hall, a thick folder in his hands, followed by several others carrying more papers. Cameras flashed, the room erupting into chaos. The murmurs became shouts as words like fraud, forged documents, and illegal transfer pierced the air. "Mother? Father?" my brother shouted, but their voices sounded thin and desperate against the roar of revelation. I watched from the car, Alexander's hand resting gently on mine, as the layers of lies they had spent years weaving began to unravel. My mother staggered backward, clutching her pearls, eyes wide as she realized the truth was no longer something she could bend or hide. "The estate," one of the men announced, holding up a legal document, "has been fully reverted to Elena Whitmore. Every asset, every account, every signature forged to claim her inheritance is null and void." The room went silent for a heartbeat before pandemonium erupted. The wedding halted. Guests whispered, pointed, and some even gasped aloud as reporters and photographers pushed forward, cameras capturing every moment of humiliation. The bride clutched her father's arm, confusion and fear battling her own shame, as she realized the family she married into had been living on deceit. And my brother, oh, my brother. He ran toward the documents, then froze, shaking his head as the weight of exposure crushed him. All the smug arrogance, all the superiority he had ever displayed, melted away in the face of undeniable truth. I did not step inside. I did not shout or gloat. I simply watched, my chest light, my heart calm, my spirit finally free from the chains they had wrapped around me. For years, I had been silent, ignored, labeled a failure. Tonight, I simply existed, and that existence alone shattered their carefully constructed world. Alexander leaned close, his voice low, steady. "You didn't need to fight them," he said. "You only needed to stand up once." I exhaled, the tension in my body releasing as though I had been holding my breath for decades. I allowed myself a faint smile, a single tear slipping down my cheek unnoticed by the frenzy inside. "They're going to be okay, right?" I asked, though I knew the answer. Justice wasn't mercy. He shook his head gently. "They'll survive, but they'll never forget what happened, and neither will they forget you." The car rolled forward, leaving the chaos behind us. Through the tinted windows, I watched my mother stumble toward the exit, her face pale, shoulders slumped, her every step an image of disbelief. My brother's frantic gestures and cries echoed faintly, carried on the wind. The room that had laughed at me now screamed, shouted, and fumbled in panic. All because I had been brave enough to show up once. I looked at Alexander, feeling a strange warmth, not just gratitude, but something deeper. Trust, connection, a bond forged not in familiarity but in recognition of the soul. "Thank you," I whispered. He squeezed my hand gently. "No, Elena. Thank you. You didn't save just my sister, you saved yourself. Tonight proves it." And he was right. I had survived the laughter, the lies, the betrayal. I had walked out of the shadows my family had tried to cage me in. I had reclaimed more than wealth or status. I had reclaimed my life. The city lights glimmered in the distance as we drove on, leaving behind the wreckage of their arrogance. I didn't look back, because my future was waiting, untarnished, untouchable. The girl they mocked by the restroom no longer existed. Only Alina Whitmore remained. And for the first time, I felt whole.